We are down to the last day of block action in World Tag League, and it's been an uneventful tournament until today, when perhaps we saw a couple of things that could shake things up with a domino effect that could go all the way into January 5th. But we don't know that yet. We're very interested to see how HENARE is, and Callum Newman as well, both of whom appeared to be injured on today's show. From there, we saw some storytelling leading up to what we suspect could be Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi's match at WrestleKingdom. And other than that, we've seen what's been mostly a blah tournament with some hints of story to come. So Jeremy and I are going to look at World Tag League, and we're going to take a look at each of the teams in it, how they did, and what their story is going into the big weekend coming up on January 4th and January 5th. And we also got a new match for Wrestle Dynasty that was interesting, but I'm going to put it under the underwhelming category. So we're going to go into all this as we go along here. So with Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. We're contributors to the Fight Game Media Network, and I just am hoping you can hear me okay. I understand that I have had some audio issues the last couple of weeks that I am working to correct. I am far from an expert on these things, and I believe I've taken a bit of a step forward, if not the final solution. I hope it sounds a little bit better this week.
You put the wire in the hole.
Maybe that's what I need to write that down. Maybe that's what I should try next week. Put the wire in.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Had a good holiday. Was home back up with my mom for Thanksgiving, which was very, very nice.
Excellent.
Saw a little bit of snow.
Excellent. Yeah. Quiet time here. I did a little bit of work before the holiday. Had to work a little bit after the holiday. Oh man, I'm getting a little bit of echo there. Let's see. What else going on? Watched a lot of World Tag League. A
lot of shows, man. A lot of shows. Seems like almost every day there's been one, and it's been a very compact tour, and it brought with it. It's interesting because one of the things that we had last time. And I want to say hello to Colin. I'm glad you're here. We're going to talk about what happened to Newman and HENARE today. Brad's here.
Hello,
and USVA guy is here too. Good. He says an announcement should be coming soon regarding HENARE and Callum. I figured that's another thing I was about to say. For those of you watching live, obviously we don't know what the status is. For those of you, we expect something imminent. So if you are hearing this on the podcast or watching this YouTube clip later on, the news may have already happened, but it hasn't as we're going live here on the show today. Both Callum Newman and HENARE in different matches today were injured. Knee injuries, both to the right knee, and both severe enough that the referee stopped the match both times. So it happened in a preview tag with HENARE against Hiromu and Naito.
Arm drag, a fucking arm drag, and he goes down.
An arm drag, yeah, and he just kind of dropped and didn't get up again. And that was one of the things where Kenta Sato stopped that one pretty early. I think HENARE had in mind, maybe I can power through this, and he kind of rolled over onto all fours.
Naito took a shot at the knee, and Kenta was like, no.
Yeah, no. Stop working. And then in the Callum Newman match, now that was a tournament match with Jeff Cobb. They were in the ring there, and he was up on top, and Zack Sabre Jr. and Oiwa were their opponents, and Ryohei Oiwa went to give Newman a superplex, and his right knee simply buckled. And he grabbed it, kind of fell off the top rope in a controlled fall. He kind of knew, I got to get off of these ropes and go to the outside, and then just held on to the knee. And as soon as, I believe that one was Marty, because I think that was the semi-main event.
Right.
Marty Asami went over there, and he immediately shook his head no. So whatever Marty asked him, which was probably, are you okay or can you continue? His answer was immediately, And Marty threw up the X, and the match was stopped right there. And Oiwa, Cobb immediately went to the outside to check on him. So did Oiwa. Cobb kind of waved him off.
Felt so bad for Oiwa. He looked devastated by the whole thing. Like, he just babyface through and through kind of thing. And Zack was just kind of guiding him through and just
Yes.
trying to like help him keep his composure. But he already knew what had happened in the other match, and
Right.
it was routine. It was absolutely routine. There was nothing about it that was like anything. And Walker on the comms, he was like, we were all just apoplectic. Like, the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? Like, there wasn't anything to it other than, you got snake bit. And, they're playing with fire right now. They're working injuries into these stories with Shota Umino, who also got injured on his, I believe, left ankle, but they're working his right ankle. No, his right ankle got injured, and they're working his left ankle in all the shows. And so they're trying to make that the story. And then Yoda has a minor pec tear, but he's fine. He can work through it. So we're in trouble, buddy. We are in trouble. And I had opinions about WrestleKingdom going into like World Tag League. I have completely different opinions now, but I'm not sure how I feel, whether the way I felt before or the way I felt now is better or more valid.
Well, it's interesting because 2 weeks ago when we discussed this, we were only a show or two in. I think maybe only one show in when we were here 2 weeks ago. That's how many shows there have been over the last couple of weeks. We went through night 13 today, and I think we were on night 1 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we had
darn near every day, 1 or 2.
One night to go, basically, in between shows, because we took last week off.
Yeah, sure. And then as we went through that, I remember we said when we were here last time, the word in both of our notes was careful. And
absolutely
how they were working the matches. These all were very house showy type of matches where no one was doing anything too crazy. Most of World Tag League, with the exception of Korakuen Hall and Osaka, Edian's Arena, Prefectural Gymnasium number 2, in the same building as Edian Arena, but the small one, the small gymnasium. With the exception of those two, these have been in mostly small towns, a couple of exceptions, but small towns with small crowds, and they're treating them like those house shows where it's just more about everybody seeing everyone, the crowd seeing all the guys. You don't have to do, put out your 5-star match type of effort. It's enough to play the hits, high five everybody. If you're a heel, scream at everybody and you're good. And it did feel like a bunch of guys who have big matches at Kingdom and at Dynasty coming up were going to be like, I'm just getting through but isn't that always the case? It's when you're trying not to get hurt that you get hurt. I'm not saying that anybody was doing anything wrong. It's just crummy luck. But in a whole series of shows where both HENARE and Newman were doing just basic house show style matches, that's when the knees go. It seems like it doesn't happen at Dominion or at the Kingdom all that often. It seems like it's always these little shows where it's just the one move that goes wrong. Pac, for God's sakes, his career was in jeopardy because he did a baseball slide at a house show and his leg broke. And just something, a guy that does all that and all those aerials, and that's how he hurts himself. Seth Rollins has torn his knee up a couple of times doing pretty fairly basic moves, and it's just something that you can't plan for, and it just happens. My worry is the HENARE one. Newman, I hope that he's okay, of course. I feel like Newman's role may have been in a Rambo at Wrestle Kingdom, maybe nothing larger than that. But HENARE, they have plans. They have plans for HENARE. I mean,
I think they're both out of the picture for a long time.
I'm hoping not. I'm hoping they get back there and find out it's not as bad as we think, but I did not like the look.
I didn't like either. They both had the exact same gut-wrenching pain. We both know what that was. Like, I don't want to act like this is going to be okay and they're going to be able to go for Wrestle Kingdom. I think anyone who's seen what happened, when you see it, you've seen it before. You know what it is. And you felt for the guys. Yeah. I can't wait for both of them.
Bulls fans, we saw this a few years ago with Derrick Rose, where he tore his knee up in the playoffs and was never the same player. And it's new. It's really, really scary.
So, like, I wish them the best. They're going to have to figure out, like maybe they called an audible on that last match tonight because now you have the titles up for grabs. You have to have a heel team in the mix. All of a sudden, like, you have to have Bulk Club in the mix. So even if Bishamon was going to win that match, Now you can pivot to a Bishamon, Bullet Club, Great O'Khan and another like partner, that kind of thing, if you really need to. You know what I mean? Like there are things that you can do just off of the possibility that they pivoted that last match, the main event, because I kind of thought Bishamon was going to win. You know, like with the story that they were telling with SANADA and Gabe Kidd, it's entirely possible this was always the plan. You know what I mean? Like the divisiveness, and then they unify, and then they defeat like a stalwart team because of, you know, their opposite attract kind of chemistry. I get all of that. There's just this possibility there that somebody had quick thinking and was like, well, if he's out, we got to figure out another tag match. And Kingdom is off the board for Gabe Kidd, but Dynasty's off the board for Gabe Kidd, but Kingdom isn't.
Yeah, it's a thought. I think they were probably going to do that anyway, and I'll get to why when we talk about the teams and how they finished in the A block. I think this was the plan. I think that you had to go through Bishamon to get there, but I think the story was Gabe Kidd and SANADA making it. And well, we can go over it now. Kidd, of course, has been in this a couple of times before. Once he was basically he was literally a young lion team, so he went over in World Tag League. They just got beat every night. Last year, he and Coughlin were in, and they won their block. They finished first in the block, and then Bishamon finished second in the other block. They met in the semifinals. Remember, we had semifinals, finals last year. And in that time, Bishamon won. So before this match took place, in backstage comments, Kidd was talking about how first I had to pay my dues, then I got close, and it was Bishamon who took it away from him, and then tomorrow I'm going to take it away from you. And so there's a little too much continuity there. Also, I think they really want to get SANADA over in this War Dog heel role. So my guess is that Bishamon was supposed to get close, lose on the very last night to this heel team, because then you set up two things. Mm-hmm. I believe, still predicting, that Hiromu and Naito are the planned winners of the B block. I still think so.
I think so too. I think the way everything's lining up, and especially given what happened, there's a very real
So you absolutely could have Naito and Hiromu against Bishamon. Nothing wrong with that. Be a terrific match probably, and you know, that would be the 3-time defending champions to overcome all that kind of stuff. Or as you have two of the most popular guys on the roster with Naito and Hiromu, you could have them against the biggest heels. And really, they're bigger heels than, I would say, the House of Torture, which can be comedic figures sometime, and House of Torture is obviously headed in a different direction. So to me, Kidd and SANADA were the biggest heels in this tournament. So you can have your biggest baby faces against your biggest heels in the finals and get everybody into it when they get to Kumamoto. So it's messy. It's messy. And if O'Khan is out of it, it makes it even messier. So
so I have a couple questions.
Not O'Khan, excuse me, Fenares. O'Khan was fine. In fact, he was smart enough to work afterwards, like he was infuriated at Naito and Hiromu and had to be held back, kind of distract and let everybody work on HENARE while still staying in characters,
maintaining the facade in a convincing manner.
I thought that was some pretty quick thinking by O'Khan there.
I thought so too. Okay, so Gabe Kidd has a match at Wrestle Dynasty with Kenny Omega, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The Young Bucks have a match at this point with Great O'Khan and HENARE that is dubious at best.
Yeah, so, I'm not liking HENARE's chances of making that, although I haven't heard anything yet.
What do you do with the Young Bucks at Wrestle Dynasty? Who do you have them face?
I don't know. I just don't know. It's a tough call. I'm just not sure at this point.
I was never convinced that it was always going to be Great O'Khan and HENARE alone versus the Young Bucks. I think you can do Bishamon versus the Young Bucks, but I almost think that you can't do that now. You might have to end up doing Naito and Hiromu versus the Young Bucks at Wrestle Dynasty.
The night after they wrestle each other at Kingdom, we're figuring?
If they don't wrestle them at all. If now they have to do a tag match.
Well, but I mean, here's my thought on this. They don't necessarily get a shot at the tag team titles at WrestleKingdom. So
no.
I always thought that we supposed that maybe Hiromu and Naito could win this thing and say, oh, well, that
the match that we really want is this, and we want
Correct.
it here.
Yeah, so they could wrestle each other January 4th. Like we wanted a ticket to the Tokyo Dome. Now we've got our ticket to the Tokyo Dome, but we want to wrestle each other. And this has been however you want to have that play out.
Okay, so if Naito and Hiromu win the World Tag League and call their shot that way, do you think that New Japan would then announce like a 4-way match at WrestleKingdom with all the teams for the vacant? Like,
well, they might do that at Dynasty, or yes, they could.
Well, if they do it at Kingdom, then the Bucks will have a match to face Dynasty.
Yes. You know what? You're right. Yeah, that's the way they ought to do it, is to have some kind of vacant filler.
So if supposedly Naito and Hiromu win World Tag League, defy the shot of the tag titles and instead, go like, hey, we want each other. And then New Japan's like, well, the titles now need to be on the line. And then you put Gabe Kidd and SANADA in there, and you put Bishamon in there. And then, you put whoever else you want in there, frankly. You could put, no, you can't do that either. I was going to say you can put Cobb and Okan together, but Cobb's already got a match. And like there's no like united crumbling empire. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's, I guess that that other guy, the new guy, could be with Cobb in a tag match at WrestleKingdom. What a spot to be in. You know what I mean?
Jacob Austin Young or something.
Yeah, Jacob. Brad, I believe, is a big fan of his and was aware of him for a while.
It's tough, isn't it? Because so many of these teams have one guy at least, sometimes two, that are already wrapped up.
Yeah. I really thought it would be Taichi and SANADA at WrestleKingdom.
Yeah.
I thought that would be like a big lock. And, I just, what a mess, man. What a mess. But I think the best course of action is Naito and Hiromu winning, calling their shot outside of the tag team division to face each other. Then you do the big 4-way match. You get the titles. Then you put the Young Bucks on Dynasty with them. Maybe 2 teams because there's a contested finish. And you have 2 teams in there. And you just do like a 3-way on Dynasty. And you get Gabe Kidd back where he needed to be. And
yeah.
But I was in a position before Shota Umino got hurt about just being kind of deflated about WrestleKingdom and Dynasty, just feeling like it was missing something. And I was trying to come to terms with that in a lot of ways. One, because I know that there is an audience here that is excited for New Japan. And like, I don't want to be a homer for the promotion, but these are the biggest shows of the year. And I want to be excited for them. The second thing is like, you're going. Like, I don't want to be that guy that's like shitting on a show that you have literally invested time and money in making the effort to making this a once-in-a-lifetime event. So I'm also in that position where it's like, don't be that guy. Don't yuck your yum. You know what I mean? Like, and so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to read you back the 2024 WrestleKingdom card. Okay?
WrestleKingdom 18 last January.
Yes. Bullet Club War Dogs. Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney versus Catch 2-2. That was the junior heavyweight tag team title match.
Good match.
We had a world television title match with Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. We had Yota Tsuji versus Yuya Uemura. We had Kaito Kiyomiya and Shota Umino versus House of Torture, which was Evo and Ren Narita, and they had 3 or 5 other people with them. You had Shingo Takagi versus Tama Tonga. You had Bishamon versus Gorillas of Destiny. You had Hiromu Takahashi versus El Desperado. Then you had Moxley versus Danielson and Kazuchika Okada. And then you had SANADA and Tetsuya.
I was up there for just a second. What was the Moxley match again?
It was Moxley versus Finley versus Will Ospreay.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Then we had Danielson and Okada.
Okay.
then we had SANADA versus Tetsuya Naito. There is a disparity now.
Top heavy show.
It was absolutely a top heavy show. And now you think about, like, we are at a point where they have the main event. The two guys that were in the main event last year haven't even been booked for a match on the card this year.
No.
Actually, the only person in the top two people in the top 4 matches on the last year's card are booked in a match this year. El Desperado and David Finlay.
Yeah, Desperado and Finlay. That's about it. Everybody else is either gone or,
the change, the tide shift, the reliance on people outside, we are suffering from that greatly this year because the reliance on counting on Okada and Ospreay, they couldn't get them. Like, they weren't a part of the plan this year. And right now, the card that we have is, it's okay. Let's go here.
I do feel like there is a movement toward new stars and bringing a new generation of people up toward the top. And I think Kingdom 19 is going to be a big step forward for that. And we'll get into more of it a little bit later. But yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Right now, Dynasty to me is far more underwhelming than Kingdom. Dynasty to me doesn't feel like a baseball stadium show at all. And so I'm a little worried about that one, except a lot of people are buying tickets for both nights, sight unseen. I'd imagine it'll do okay. I have no idea how many tickets have been sold for this thing.
I have been told that the ticket sales are not great.
I don't know why they would be. And here's the thing, and King of Pro Wrestling, Power Struggle, both those really good shows. One of those was loaded up, and it was a fantastic show.
This feels like just a show. WrestleKingdom this year feels like just a show.
Only drew about 3,000 people, and or didn't draw 4,000, and it was down from last year. And it was so it's not a hot product right now. It's just not a hot product. And I don't see a whole lot of this WrestleKingdom show that indicates it feels like more of a beginning than what WrestleKingdom often feels like, which is like the finale of something, the culmination of things. This one feels a little bit more like it's going to be crowning moments and new things starting than things wrapping up. And it's I do worry about it. I worry about the attendance there. I don't know what New Japan is going to announce, but I'm curious of what the actual attendance is going to be. And I do worry about Dynasty because a lot of this stuff feels like second or third choice if you were going to really have a draft here, so to speak. And part of that is my own personal preference, but it's not John Moxley, it's Claudio. Maybe. Oh, I got thoughts on that. It's not Jay White, it's Brody. Okay, there's just a lot of things. It's the Young Bucks at all, period, being there. There's some things about that are just like, this doesn't feel like the people that are coming over from outside. It's Ricochet, who's a terrific wrestler, but
he's a mid-carder.
It just feels like a bunch of mid-carders over there, and that's a little concerning.
It's underwhelming. Like the whole thing.
Comments from you guys here.
Sure, let's have at it.
Yeah, and then Dunstan just said, he felt like Bishamon should do the match at Dynasty, or Naito and Hiromu could win the titles before the end of the year. That's possible. Still have some shows, and then have a singles match at Wrestle Kingdom, defend at Dynasty. So they would win the titles, be the tag champs, take that spot. Possible. I mean, you might have to be improvising here. And then Brad mentioned this for Jacob Austin Young. Man, it's good to have Brad back here. He says, Jay's a buddy of mine. I'm so happy for him being over there. He's tight with TJP. And TJP is a trainer for FSW in Vegas, where Jay came up and is also a trainer. So, yeah.
Context.
Yeah, I have a feeling if New Japan likes Jacob Austin Young, it looks like they do, some new opportunities for him are coming. If Newman is out a long time, he's a natural to kind of go into that spot. Doesn't do the same thing Newman did.
Every time I hear Jacob Austin Young, I think Brian Austin Green from 90210. Like I just like the names are just in my head right now.
Dunstan mentions this. Says it's very domestic in terms of the Wrestle Kingdom card, which doesn't bother me. They need Wrestle Kingdom needs to set up their business in Japan for the next year. That's really where their focus ought to be. And I know people want to have and I understand why. They want to have more stuff here in the U.S. and they like do this with AEW, do this with CMLL. New Japan needs to get its stuff together in Osaka and Tokyo. They need to work on that, and so it should be a domestic leaning card. They need to get their business in order at home. And Dunstan said it feels like so many changes this year made them panic in terms of what matches will excite fans to travel. Yeah, I think I also think again they have in mind who they want their stars to be, but those people aren't in position yet. And I think Kingdom is going a long way toward getting.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that right there that I want to touch on when I get a chance. But let's go through some more of these comments.
And Dunstan also says Dynasty screams last minute. Yeah, sure does. The only people on the card are the people that have worked for New Japan before. That doesn't surprise me because I still think most of the people at that show are still going to be from Japan. They're still selling tickets to Japanese fans. There are going to be foreigners in Dynasty, but they are still selling tickets. So I think that it makes sense to have guys with a past. Like we talked about MJF challenging, which would be interesting to people in the United States, not particularly interesting for anyone in Japan who haven't seen the guy before. They might know of him. They might have watched some clips, but AEW doesn't have a big presence in Japan. They know of it, but so I don't blame them for booking somebody who is they've at least seen before on some of these shows. And then Dunstan says the question to both is people will complain about relying on Okada Ospreay for Dynasty when they just left this year. Yeah, I know, and I've been advocating to get those guys if you can get them, just because I think you need to sell tickets. I'm not sure there's a Wrestle Dynasty next year if this thing draws 10,000.
I think there is. I think to me, for a long time, it has felt like there is a 3-year plan with Shota and when it started with Shota getting the push, then Yoda arrived, and then Yuya and Ryohei Oiwa both kind of showed up a little bit after that. But for the longest time, I have felt like WrestleKingdom 20 was a circle on the calendar, and it's like, this is the day the new generation arrives. It's next year. And so I have been fine with not believing that it was going to be the right time for Shota to win the IWGP title this year, or even positioning any of those guys in that route. Like, they need to cook for one more year for them to be the true main event guys that we want them to be, parallel it with Hiroshi Tanahashi retirement. We're all seeing what this is. But what I was not expecting was just a flat bump in the road on the destination to WrestleMania, to Wrestle Kingdom 20 from Wrestle Kingdom 18. This does not feel like a Wrestle Kingdom card to me. Like, it feels like a power struggle card. A very good card, but not like oh, holy shit, they were not messing around when they came up with this card. And then Wrestle Dynasty is booked as this great big 5 promotional deal, right? You're supposed to have AEW, Ring of Honor, Stardom, CMLL, and New Japan. It just feels like New Japan with a lot of AEW people, and then one more match with a couple of other people in there. There's no CMLL talent of the men coming in there, and it's just I want all of them. I want all of these talents to be booked and ready and available. Right now, we've got the AEW guys. We're gonna probably bring in Athena, and I think it's Zuxis from CMLL that is coming over. But it's just I just wanted more. I want to be able to shout out to the world right now all of these great things that are happening on these shows, and it's I am still trying to find my way in what voice I can tell people man, this stuff is awesome, because I'm just not there.
Yeah. And USVA guy says that Wrestle Dynasty is not a Japan-specific show. It can be booked anywhere around the globe. No, but you are selling to Japanese fans and some foreigners. There's going to be people like me there, but yeah, and I think that's part of the problem is it doesn't feel particularly special. It could just be anywhere, and I don't mean that in a this would be a main event in any arena in the country. It's just this just doesn't feel like a special show. And Dunstan mentioned CMLL has no talent announced. They'll have at least the representative in the women's match. Because we figured out, you said Zeus's. But yeah, they're none of the Friday night guys are.
Maybe Volador as a heel will be there.
What's that?
He turned heel.
Who did?
Volador.
Yeah, well, okay. But I'm just saying, right now, there's just no, but they don't have any of those.
Nothing is there right now. It's a New Japan show with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and a few other, like Claudio and Brody King. Like right now, it feels like a really cool episode of Dynamite in Tokyo.
It's very well put. All right.
But here's the last thing I'm going to put before I think I'm exhausting what thing right now. It's like none of this is pay-per-view. Okay. We are getting this on the regular $10 sub that we get on New Japan World, both Wrestle Dynasty and WrestleKingdom. So what scrutiny I have is that the event doesn't feel as big as I want it to be. But that's not to say that we are not getting an immense value for $5 a piece for watching these shows back to back, in addition to New Year Dash and whatever else is on there. And feel like, okay, you are getting your money's worth on these shows. These are great matches. You're just, when you think WrestleKingdom, you think a little bit more. Yeah, there is a New Year Dash.
And I got tickets. I'm going. So yeah, I'll be there too. So I'm going to be at Kingdom Dynasty Dash, the Stardom show on the 3rd, the TJPW show early in the day on the 4th.
Already on, man.
I'm hoping to get to a couple others. I have my sights set on a couple other shows while I'm there. But yeah, we'll be covering all that from Tokyo. I'll be in my little hotel room.
We'll be doing a lot of shows in the beginning of January, not just one.
Yeah,
we'll be live on location, I think,
and not only here on Spots, as it turns out. So, but we'll be getting into all that. But yeah, okay, let's talk about World Tag League a little, because a lot of things that happen in World Tag League can lead us into that. And so we had the A block, the final night of A block action today. That was today's show, and this is the one that where HENARE and Callum Newman both got hurt. But the main event was Gabe Kidd and SANADA pulling it together and defeating Bishamon to move into the finals from A. So that eliminates the 3-time tournament champion Bishamon. So Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto out, not making the finals. Bishamon had to be the gatekeeper tag team, though. Whoever got through this, they had to go through them. And Kidd and SANADA, of course, had their story that they didn't get along at first. They lost 2 of their first 3 matches. They were basically walking out on each other, not during the match, but immediately after. But Gabe is starting to take to him, or at least he won't argue with a guy who's getting results for him. And so they're starting to build up that, maybe this guy's enough of a bastard for me after all. And it seems like if they are going for Hiromu and Naito in the B block, these are good foils for them. Overall, I think Kidd's been doing pretty well in this tournament. SANADA is working on his more brash heel persona. He's not a natural at it, but I do think he's trying. And overall, I thought they put forth decent effort. And they are the A block representatives. And they finished with 10 points. The only team to finish with 10 points. Bishamon finished on 8. So did Yota Tsuji and Shingo Takagi. And those are the 8-point vote getters. And we'll talk about LIJ in just a second. Jeremy, what were your overall impressions of Kidd and SANADA in this tournament? Now, both of them have other things going. We mentioned the Kenny Omega match and all that. So it feels like a bit of a temporary team. They'll be allies, of course, and they'll work together in their War Dogs group matches and things like that. But overall, I thought they put an interesting subplot together in this tournament.
I would agree. I think subplot is a really good way to put it. I found myself interested in what was going on in their matches, in the conflict they had with each other, in the midway of the match where some of their efforts were not on the same page. Cost of a match here or there. Gabe Kidd in the backstage comments. This has been great for SANADA, and Brad is saying right here, shown more personality in the couple months as War Dog that he has since he returned from excursion. There's only so much you can do when you have to emote no personality because you're cool, and now that he's able to just beat some ass and do that, I kind of would have liked this version of SANADA in the main event scene rather than, the baby face and the robe and that kind of the classical version that he exposed. So I've liked it. I've liked everything about it. I think that they're probably going to be in a tag scenario, and maybe Yuya and Taichi are the ones that are coming back and getting involved with that before Taichi goes on to, face off with Finley, something like that. Who knows what's going on with just 4 guys? It looks like you got a crumbling empire and only 4 guys from just 5 guys, with only 3 of them around most of the time. So, we're advocating for a faction remix and like a revitalization here. And, the talent getting injured is not doing anyone any favors and trying to prop up some old branding.
Bishamon was really good here as
They were
almost winners again, and just the stalwart team that you have to get past. I love their teamwork, Jeremy. When I watch Bishamon, I love that they do things that make perfect sense if all of this were real. Like if wrestling were real. I love the stuff when they do the waist lock, go behind, run a guy into the ropes, and hold him there while the other guy comes over and clobbers him, immobilizing opponents for one another. Yoshihashi backing somebody into the corner, Goto charging in, Yoshihashi knowing when to duck at the right moment. These are all things that I feel like you would do if wrestling were real as a long-standing tag team. You would figure out little signals and things like that. I think they do that stuff really well, and they do it in a way that makes a lot of sense. It's not just diving in and saving each other. They just have little things that look like they're almost running plays.
They're a well-oiled machine. They're in sync with each other.
I really enjoy that. And a lot of people bristle at going from a singles wrestler to a tag team wrestler. They feel like it's a step down, but I feel like Yoshihashi and Goto have embraced it and have turned into one of the best teams in the world. And they found a niche with it that might not otherwise be there. And I think it's been fun to watch over the last few years. They did a terrific job establishing this. And now it's going to matter who wins this World Tag League a little bit. I'm not trying to say that this is the G1. I know World Tag League finishes fairly distant third, maybe even fourth when it comes to all of the tournaments in New Japan. But overall, I think they've done a good job of making it mean something to win it, at least a little bit. And they're always a team you have to take seriously. So I think they've done their job, which is just to make the tag, give the tag team division a mountain to climb. Them.
I definitely think that being in a tag team and being a successful tag team with each other has given Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto a confidence that they were lacking before the 2020s.
Certainly Yoshihashi.
I mean, he had to duck that concussion joke with the Jay White run-in for a long time. And even before then, he wasn't entirely taken seriously. So we talk about legendary tag teams and we talk about like these great American tag teams, but you really just the work that Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto have done, frankly, for the last 5 years, just kind of keep the tag team division on its back in New Japan. It's not going to get all the credit in the world, but for people paying attention, you should give them their credit.
After that, the other team to finish with 8 points was Yota Tsuji and Shingo Takagi. Now, we expected them to do well, but we also expected them to fall a little bit short, just like it turned out, basically. They both have big irons in the fire for WrestleKingdom. Shingo Takagi, my goodness, he's got Konosuke Takeshita in what could absolutely be the show stealer. And, Tsuji's very busy as well with David Finlay and in a critical match for him for the global championship. So we figured they would win a bunch. We figured that they would probably get to the last day in contention and then not quite get there. And that's exactly how it went. And they did a terrific job building up that final match that got them knocked off, which was the Shota Umino and Tomoaki Honma match. And both of them saying, it's Honma and then Umino's injured, so this will be a walkthrough for us and we'll move on to the finals and things. And it set up that hero's journey there for Shota Umino. They did exactly what they're supposed to do. They have bigger irons in the fire. There he goes. And so, but nice work for them. And they had some good matches. This was not a tournament that was filled with great matches. We did not see main event type of wrestling, even in the main events in this tournament. But Tsuji and Shingo had some pretty good matches in there.
they were exactly what I expected them to be during the tournament. You know what I mean? Like, they went in there and they were like a day at the office. And for Yota Tsuji, who's been learning under Naito and Hiromu and Shingo, like, he knows how to bring it. He knows what he's doing in these matches, just enough to send the fans home happy, but, not killing himself, even though he's got the pec tear, left side pec, little red flash on his chest. You're like, oh, that's not good, but we're going to get through it, apparently. And what has done to the Williamson? Bishamon's only problem is their lack of dynamic feuds with teams outside of Aussie Open. They haven't had a team that challenges their character as a team. You know what? That's not true. We had the Guerrillas of Destiny with ELP and Hikuleo, and they left. TMDK did not live up to the expectations that a lot of people had of them.
Yeah,
but that's not the fault of New Japan. They put the engine behind it. Like they did everything they could. Up to that point. They put both belts on it.
Yeah, they did. It's not so much that he's saying that like they haven't had a long-term feud with them, right. and that's they've had rivalries, but maybe not feuds. I think the closest they got to a feud was the House of Torture thing that was over the trios titles.
Yeah, but I mean, like, had Coughlin been able to go last year, we would have had a different scenario. If Hikuleo hadn't taken off last year, we would have had a different scenario. I'm literally saying that they have been the backbone because there hasn't been any stability. They haven't been able to maintain it. Like, I'm with Dunstan on this completely. I'm just saying it's like there's nobody's fault to this. Aussie Open got poached because New Japan couldn't cover health insurance. Shit happens. Like, now Kyle Fletcher's the biggest star in the world, apparently.
Shota Umino and Tomoaki Honma, this has all been about the hero's journey for Shota. And what I mean by that is a lot of these hinting that he's going to turn heel, that seems to have faded away. People are not booing him. They're not even trying to push it in that direction. This has all been about Umino supporting his partner, Honma, and he's working hurt. That's the storyline. Well, kind of, but he's a little banged up. But they are portraying it that he is fighting valiantly through this, and other people are doubting him, and he keeps stepping up. And they had the whole story. It's just like they even said he's better off half-assing it or just laying down in this tag team match because he's got a match with Zack Sabre Jr. and he's out of World Tag League. They haven't, they can't win World Tag League. So what's the point? And Umino is still just saying, nope, you always try your best. You always try as hard as you can. You always try to win. And he did. And he eliminated LIJ in it. I think Umino's story, and I agree with you that his big moment is going to be January 5th, 2026.
Yes.
I agree with you on that. But I think that begins on January 4th, 2025, and not necessarily winning the title. I think that he can go in there and give Zack Sabre, and Zack can work this,
yes.
Get him to within an inch of Zack's life, right? And fall short. That's a pretty common trope in building new heroes in New Japan and Japanese wrestling as a whole. That coming within inches of the goal and falling short and then pulling yourself up and trying again. That is a story that has worked with Japanese audiences, and really it works here too. Mm-hmm. It just works in drama, right? I mean, that's just a classic trope in movies and things. I think that's where they're going with it. And keep in mind, you can't really discount Shota winning this thing because, boy, do they like to have a Japanese guy on the microphone with all the ribbons at the end of WrestleKingdom. Either way, what I'm saying is his big moment is going to come, I agree with you, when Tanahashi steps away. But either way, I don't think there's a heel turn coming. I think this is all about giving him as many obstacles to overcome as possible so that the people start to get behind him. I think it's starting to work a little bit. Hard to tell in small towns, which are a little bit more polite than Osaka and Tokyo. But remember, they had to kind of manufacture some of that booing with commentary. The fans didn't boo Umino early in the night. They booed him when they came out after. You remember this? It's like all this stuff about, they're going to boo him. And they didn't. I don't think they really want to necessarily. They're not jumping out of their seats for him yet. I understand that. But I think this is more about, but we're not getting to that point yet. I think that he can have a match. If he has a match with Zack, comes within an inch of it, doesn't quite win it, and says, all right, the hell with it, and then takes down Claudio on night 2 and beats him, I think he's on his way to that trajectory where they want him to be. I think that him losing, having his heart broken, and then sucking it up and just saying, oh, no. I'm taking down Claudio, and now I'm taking down my hero, my mentor. So Moxley, get your ass out here. By the way, I'm not 100% convinced that Jon Moxley isn't going to be in Tokyo that weekend, because he's crazy like that with some of the travel. He's done that before, where he and it would not shock me if he turned up.
I wouldn't rule it out either.
I think the match with Claudio is going to happen, but I'm not saying that Moxley might not make an appearance. That could happen. John's crazy with the travel. He's done that before, bounce back and forth. Point being, I think what happens on January 4th and 5th is Shota's launch toward the ultimate goal right here. And I think it is to put as much in front of him to overcome as possible. And I think he's going to come out of Dynasty looking like, I didn't get to the top of the mountain this time, but I, by God, will. And I will begin the climb now. That's my thought on Shota Umino after seeing how World Tag League's been worked.
So you don't know the emotional roller coaster that I went over this whole thing from, we haven't spoken in 2 weeks. And, on the 29th or so is when, Shota Umino does the run the ropes and does the tackle, and his ankle catches underneath him. And all of a sudden he just can't wrestle. And, you start to hear the rumors like, oh man, he really messed up his ankle and he's going to miss a show. And you're sitting there like, wow, this fucking WrestleKingdom show is just snake bit. And you're worried about it. And you're just thinking like, this whole plan with Shota Umino, like, I'm overreacting. I'm all over the place with this thing. And then it turns out he's in there. And, the first match that they have back, like, it's all story. Like, they take him out. He's not even in the match. He shows up. He's got the fighting spirit. He's got the heart. He's going to be there with Honma, and they're going to try. Kenta and Cheiko just, cripple him and leave him for dead and just kind of have their way with Honma for the majority of the match. And you're just like, this is dumb. And then you think about it. And you're like, oh, they're going to turn shit into gold. Because they're going to take this injury and they're going to get behind Shota. And it's like, they know he's hurting. And he's going to go into that IWGP title match with Zack Sabre Jr. And he's not going to quit. And every time Zack Sabre Jr. tries to pin him or tries to submit him, and that fighting spirit and that crowd is going to get behind Shota over and over and over again. And they're going to be with him when he loses. And then they're going to be with him next year when he wins it all.
Again, I don't think necessarily, by the way, don't discount.
I'm thinking about all of this in terms of like, you can do the loss. Like a lot of these stars, when they like, Tanahashi didn't win right away. He had a shot and then, but he didn't win the big one right away. Like Okada, we talked about Okada. He came in a month after his excursion and he won the title. As if like everybody does that. As if like, this is the legend. Well, this is the Babe Ruth call your shot thing. That was special because you don't do it. Mm-hmm. So the build with Shota is to cool yourself and build. And building by like flying too close to the sun and like with every fiber of your being not willing to give up, but your body fails you. That's the story of babyfaces that you can get.
And don't forget, even Kazuchika Okada walked out of the Tokyo Dome in tears one year while Tanahashi was on the microphone saying, you still got a long way to go to be the ace. And it's one thing to do it in Osaka at New Beginning. It's another to do it in the Tokyo Dome. He had to climb the mountain. And so for Umino, it would be another thing for him to have to fight through the idea of, you say you're going to be the future ace, but you're the first guy that ever let a foreigner win the main event of at WrestleKingdom, that type of thing. So
this is the fighting spirit, man. This is what they want. This is how you build a star. Like he's just he's getting there, and I think that's what I was saying, like turning shit into gold, like him getting injured and potentially like being out of like even the thought that he wasn't in there. And some people were like, "Oh, good, he's not in there. Who would you put in there instead?" Like you're honestly like thinking about that kind of thing. You can't think about it like that. You have to think about it as like, how do you spin this into a positive with Shota, not how do you spin this into a positive without Shota.
And let's keep in mind, Shota's really good. He is really good. So Brad says he enjoys his tournament, and he's done a good job getting back on track for the most part. And Mr. Opinionated is here, and he says, "Hi, guys. New here and know very little about NJPW, but love the tournaments they have." I appreciate that. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad.
Well, mister, if you have questions, we have answers. And feel free to type in anything, and we'll talk you through it.
And I'm glad you enjoy the tournaments because they are very intricately booked, and I think New Japan still does them better than anybody else.
Can I tell you a secret?
You go ahead.
Watching the C2 makes me appreciate the World Tag League and the Super Junior Tag League and the best of the Super Juniors and the G1 so much more.
Yeah.
Just I don't want to go into it too much, but I just thank you, Ghetto. I really appreciate the way you booked these tournaments.
Other teams, so we had Cobb and Newman. It was another story for Cobb they've done in the past, which is he gets off to a hot start and is undefeated coming out of the gate, but then led to a late losing streak. Newman injured today, of course, that looked legit, but Cobb has the TV title match to go. And, it's one of those deals where Cobb he's come out of the gate before and then dropped the tail end of his tournament to fall out of it. But he's always a good hand to have in there. And, the thing is, with today's injury, I don't think it changed the result because what we saw in the matches among the teams already eliminated today was the usual evening up of records. So sort of like the team that ever has the better record, the eliminated team that has a better record than the other eliminated team, it's usually they would lose, and then it kind of brings everybody back together, gets everybody on 6 points, for instance, as they did here. So everybody here had either 10, 8, or 6. There weren't a particular have-not team in this block. And Cobb and Newman had some good stuff in this one, but they were there to finish where they did, the middle of the pack. And I would say the same thing about Alex Zane and Ryusuke Taguchi, which is about what you'd expect for them. They pulled up a couple of upsets and had a couple of pretty decent matches right there. I really like Alex Zane in New Japan. And Taguchi, I
have to be clear. I want to be clear. There were no bad performances in the World Tag League. Like everybody did their job.
Well, no, I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Okay.
And we'll get to that. They're in the B block, though, not in the A block.
Okay.
But, yeah, and then Owens and Kenta did fine, about what you would expect from them. So, and they finished on 6 as well. And the one other team that surprised me a little bit, Zack and Oiwa getting only 6 points. I didn't think they would win because, again, both of them are full plates. But I thought they would do a little bit better. But their losses made sense for the most part. I think they were booked correctly. Zack, you had to get that Shota Umino visual pin on Zack. I totally understand that. A couple of losses for Oiwa where guys, flat out, low blows. You can understand those kind of losses. So I think they made sense. And you couldn't have them winning the thing, and it was busy on top of the block. So I think they booked it in a way that made sense. But, yes, I was surprised that they were already eliminated going into the final day.
Okay. All right, I'm dying to know who you thought underperformed in the B block now.
Oh, my goodness. Tanahashi and Jado were awful.
I don't think they underperformed. They performed exactly how I thought they were going to perform.
Oh, I thought it was worse than even I thought. I mean, they are two of the least mobile guys in the roster right now.
I went in knowing that, and I thought, okay, given what you can do, fine.
No, I thought it was worse. It was worse than I thought, and especially some of the stuff like Tanahashi, his gear doesn't even fit him now. I mean, he has to spend every couple of seconds trying to hitch his pants up because they don't fit over because his ass is hanging out. Because he probably can't do squats anymore because his knees are completely shot. So he's kind of lost his butt. So half of the back half of his tights just kind of slide down. It's just sad, dude. I felt sad watching Tanahashi wrestle, and before he's always had a way of. He's really declined in the last 6 months. And we've talked about good knee Tanahashi and bad knee Tanahashi. We've talked about that for a couple of years, but it's to the point now where he really can't work. And he just can't do much at all. And before he was always able to use his smarts and his working ability to work around his physical limitations. Now his physical limitations are so great, you can't get around him. He just can't do much of anything anymore. And he isn't in as good a shape as he was. And it just made me sad to see him like struggling to get to his feet and pull his pants up because the crack of his ass is showing. And this is Hiroshi friggin' Tanahashi.
The thing for me is we've been watching this, and I've made my peace with the fact that we have clearly seen the best of Hiroshi Tanahashi back in the day. And this roster is decimated, and they need to fill spots on these tournaments without breaking the bank. And so when you have to roll out Tanahashi and Jado, and they've clearly had like better days, and you're watching it and you're just knowing like this is what is best for the company right now because they don't have the infrastructure right now to bring other people in who are willing to take the losses and for a number of variety of reasons. And it's just one of those, I am willingly looking past the bad work, and I'm willingly looking past the hamminess of what he's doing and what Jado is doing. It was supposed to be ELP, and ELP was supposed to be holding up this entire thing. I made my peace with all of this. I totally get it, but I am going to 100% validate your frustration in terms of the work rate. But I will return back to what I said and said. This wasn't, everyone met my expectations, my personal expectations.
And Brad mentions before ELP had to pull out, and yes, we absolutely hope that Riley's doing well here as he battles cancer there. We know who he was going to team with Tanahashi. Yeah, we mentioned that. Honma seems like a weird one for Shota. Was there someone else that was supposed to get that spot with Shota? I'm not sure that's okay. I think that Honma is actually the perfect guy for what they needed to do. And what I mean by that is they needed a guy that didn't have a WrestleKingdom match there because they were going to beat him a lot. And I think that the whole point was that Umino was going to work his way through, get a couple of wins, but not win the tournament. And Honma is a perfect guy that can lose to anybody, but he embodies that fighting spirit because Honma always tries. Like his whole gimmick now, since he came back from that horrible injury he had, is that I am just going to keep trying, and just that never quit attitude, which meshes well with Umino's current story of trying to climb this mountain. But at the same time, it's a guy who can lose falls. It has to be a guy who can lose falls without being embarrassed. And I think that actually that's probably just the right guy to team with Umino in this tournament. I don't know who else from Hantai would have been.
There wasn't another babyface team that you could do, right? There's just the roster was barren. However, I validate what he's saying because I think if you had done Shota and Tanahashi as a team, I think you would have been able to do exactly the same stuff with Honma, given like Tanahashi's limitations. And you could have told the same story of Shota trying to hold it, like be enough for both guys to keep the team on his back. You could have done that.
I don't know, because the thing is with Tanahashi, his story's with Evil. And we'll see what that is tomorrow morning when he faces Evil in the tournament. I think there's going to be a chapter in that feud taking place then, whatever it may be.
Sure.
But for that, again, they both have Wrestle Kingdom matches. So Tanahashi, you don't want to see Tanahashi get pinned too much when you have what is, I think, supposed to be a big Wrestle Kingdom match. I know Tanahashi's put a lot of people over, but you are going into a Wrestle Kingdom match, and you don't want to necessarily see people laying down too much going into something like that.
Boy, I was looking at the B block for tomorrow. The whole thing fucked. It's done. It's already over.
What are you talking about? I'm sorry.
The B block for tomorrow? Like, there's already a winner.
Yeah. It's a problem.
Yeah.
There wasn't going to be. But the injury today.
Okay, let's explain to everybody.
That's why I texted you what I did. Is you hadn't seen it yet, and so I tried to kind of tell him that something awful happened, not in the script, that kind of ruins the drama for the B block. But yeah, if it's a forfeit, then there's nothing to play for.
Okay, so we have 4 matches for tomorrow. We have Tanahashi and Jado versus Evil and Ren Narita. We got Mikey Nicholls and Shane Haste versus Toriano and Bolton Oleg. You got Naito and Hiromu Takahashi versus Great Khan and Henare. And you have Taichi and Taka Michinoku versus Stevie and Tomei Felipe in a completely inconsequential match. Now, here's the issue. We have one team at 10, which is Great Khan and Henare, with one member of that team unable to wrestle. So we're probably
they haven't announced that. They haven't
announced it, but if they were to lose or forfeit to Tetsuya Naito and Hiromu Takahashi, Naito and Takahashi would go ahead and win because they would also have 10 at that point with a tiebreaker.
Correct.
So even if Evil and Ren Narita wins, they will have 10, but they will have lost the tiebreaker to Naito and Takahashi.
But if Yano and Oleg win, they have 10 points, and they have the tiebreaker on Hiromu and Naito.
So you think that what do you think?
Well, I think what they wanted to do was have it come down to the final night, and in the end, I think it was going to come down to Hiromu and Naito against the tag champs, and I think that the others would either fall by the wayside or lose on tiebreakers. So I thought that was the plan all along. It's just that the drama gets sucked out of it if the tag team champs have to forfeit it, and because before you could at least have the drama of, okay, these other teams got close, like Yano and Oleg, Evil and Narita. It would make sense storyline wise for Tanahashi and Jado to pull it off and thwart them in the last match, and then have some sort of angle coming out of it, because really that match is much more about setting up WrestleKingdom than it is anything to do with World Tag League. And with that, then you can have Yano and Oleg lose. And then, okay, here it is. It comes down to, because who are Yano and Oleg in with? Nicholls and Haste?
Yeah.
See, that screams out, Nicholls and Haste are on 6, Oleg and Yano are on 8. That screams out the team with 2 fewer points winning to tie it up.
Yeah.
I mean, which would eliminate Yano and Oleg, and then it would just say, okay, now it's just main event, winner of this one moves on. Mm-hmm. The problem is if Henare isn't able to go, then all that kind of goes out the window, and everybody knows that Hiromu and Naito win before the matches start.
I would not be shocked if there was some type of impromptu match, right? Like if Great Khan and Henare, they had to forfeit, that Evil and Ren Narita tried to like force another match at the last minute, and they have like an impromptu, like one more match to do the whole thing just because I don't know.
I'm glad I'm not ghetto right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. Like they've lined it up for you can get the direction of Naito and Hiromu Takahashi, but there's that question of, do you pivot at the last minute if like things aren't going according to plan?
Yeah, they might have to do something like that. Question for you here before we go on with the rest of these teams. What did you think of the Hiromu faking the turn on him against Evil and Narita to win that one? So for the folks that maybe didn't see all this, they were wrestling Evil and Ren Narita, Naito and Hiromu were. And there's the usual thing where the referee's distracted, and Ren Narita brought in the push-up bar to kind of clobber somebody over the head with it. He was going to hit Naito. Hiromu slid in the ring, grabbed it away from him before he could use it. Stood there with the push-up bar, and Red Shoes turns around and goes, hey, get that thing out of the ring. Naito is standing next to Hiromu, kind of squaring off with him, and suddenly Hiromu super kicks Tetsuya Naito right in the mouth. Just looks at him, does the whole I'm boiling it down, but he paused a lot for dramatic effect. Did the whole Bullet Club, the cigarette thing into the 2 Suite, which is the House of Torture symbol. They all touched hands with him. It looks like Hiromu Takahashi has joined House of Torture. And then suddenly Hiromu turns on him. And when they have their backs to Hiromu, because they're about to move in on Naito, Hiromu starts waffling each of them and got them all knocked around, and then ran over to Naito, who was still selling a super kick, begs his forgiveness immediately, and then they do their finisher to finish him off. I got kind of a kick out of it.
It was enjoyable. It was totally enjoyable.
It was done in a way that works for their characters because, of course, Naito has been hazing Hiromu Takahashi ever since he joined LIJ. And then for him to just kind of just put, the part of Hiromu was just like, I wouldn't mind kicking the living crap out of this guy in the face. Maybe I just have an excuse to this time. And of course it sets up things for later for Kingdom. I did enjoy it. I thought it was pulled off well by those guys.
I liked it. I immediately didn't believe it because every time a House of Torture somebody joins the House of Torture, there's a T-shirt involved. Mm-hmm. They always throw the T-shirt, and they didn't do the T-shirt this time. And I was like, there's no shirt. So
they weren't going to do it in front of 700 people in a tiny town.
It was the shirt, man. Like when you don't have the shirt and you don't like offer the shirt to the guy, like then he put on the shirt. He never put on the shirt. I was like, you didn't baptize this in cloth.
It's not official until you put a shirt on. That's
not official until you put a shirt on. 100%.
Right. Okay, so so Yano and Bolton, they've been rolling along okay on 8 points, which you don't expect. Bolton's gotten a couple of wins with his kamikaze. Yano's gotten some wins through low blows and his usual Yano shenanigans. They've been an entertaining team, but like I said, I expect them to be one of those teams that's in convention and then just falls short. They're facing Mikey Nicholls and Shane Haste. TMDK, Jeremy, I feel like a decision has been made within New Japan, for now anyway, to de-emphasize these guys because they held both belts. Now they've lost both belts. They're finished in the middle of the tournament. We're not part of the thing. They were eliminated fairly early in this tournament, considering it just seems like New Japan has decided to go in a different direction with the tag team division than Mikey and Shane here. I don't know if that's because they're protecting themselves again because they're foreign wrestlers and the new year is coming and God knows what we saw last year, right? Or if part of it, I was looking through my notes. More than once in the last 6 months, there has been a TMDK match where my notes were not quite as good as I was hoping it would be. Happened more than once. Happened against Grizzled Young Veterans. Happened in some of their other title matches where I just thought, boy, I really thought that was going to be great, and it was good instead of great. I wonder if New Japan isn't just thinking maybe we missed the prime of this.
I would say that I don't believe that they capitalized on their opportunities or maximized their opportunities as the strong in the IWGP tag champs. I also think that
they brought those belts together and then they stay together for a month or two and then they split them up. It's so unfocused.
There's not a plan that I can clearly identify with. I'm with you on that. My whole deal is that I just feel like they were always going to be dropping those titles around October because the minute Zack got the IWGP title, they moved those titles off of them and they moved it to another faction because that's what they do. They try and spread all of those titles around to different factions and make sure that, everybody's got something different. Hontai has got the junior heavyweight tag titles with the Kevin Knight and Kushida, and the tag titles are with the United Empire, and the TV titles with House of Torture. They're all over the place. It's like everybody's got a little something. So, it's like it was time to spread the wealth. But I definitely agree with you. I do not feel like they had a signature match, a definitive match. I think Mikey Nicholls has a definitive move with the headbutt, but I couldn't tell you much more that he does that really stands out as a wrestler. And I think that's their problem is they're good, but they're somewhat vanilla in their presentation that they don't have anything that makes them look elite in the world of tag team wrestling.
I also don't think that Shane Haste's silly, goofy comedy personality is helping them much at all. And I don't just mean
that either of their personalities are doing much.
They have been in the past a terrific team. They've been a team for a very long time. It might be that they're just past the prime a little bit in that. And the thing with Shane was the reason I was watching Japanese commentary.
Oh wow,
it's rough sometimes when he's listening. And by the way, that's the other thing. HENARE, he might be one of the best announcers in wrestling. I'm not sure. Like if you listen to HENARE on commentary when he sits, he is fan-freaking-tastic at it. He's wonderful at it. is. Just listen to him talking strategy, and he puts it over like it's real and all this stuff. He's really good. Gabe Kidd, much improved. I thought the other day when he took it, it was much better than the last time where he was a little.
I liked Zack on commentary when he was doing it a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
He was better than he was a couple of weeks ago, I thought.
I digressed a little bit on that, but sometimes that whole kind of goofy personality thing doesn't take off. Anyway, it was for us going into this year saying best tag team that never won the titles, and with Aussie Open gone, it's TMDK's time to run the division. I think they had a chance, and I'm really not sure they delivered once they were there. Match quality we were hoping for.
They didn't. They are very quickly, they became the weakest link on TMDK.
Yeah, because Fujita's just going to be.
Fujita are a revelation.
Oh God!
And you have Zack Sabre Jr. as the front man. All of a sudden, you look around and Mikey Nicholls and Shane Haste. You're kind of like, are you like? I don't want to be rude here. Are you going to pull the weight that these other guys are pulling right now?
Yeah, it's a fair point. Okay, so we had that. We mentioned Yano and Bolton. We mentioned TMDK. We mentioned Evil and
Nicholls and Haste. One more time.
We'll go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nicholls and Haste weren't even the best tag team in their own faction.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. In fact, I was about to say the very best match of this entire tournament, I thought, was Zack and Oiwa against Tsuji and Shingo.
One of them.
Yeah. No, I thought that was great. Yeah, you're right. All right. So who else is in this tournament? Now, this is the one that there's a block like this every year where, where you have the haves and the have-nots. So there are a couple of teams that finish really low in the standings, and then usually the other block is very, very even. They kind of contrast them that way. So we talked a lot about Tanahashi and Jado and just not being able to move around much. But again, their whole tournament is this last match against Evil and Narita. I think that's the angle going into to set up finally the Kingdom stuff, or at least set up the setup. Like there's going to be something that goes on. There are still like the Christmas Korakuens to come, and they might do some things in Tokyo to push it along. But I feel like that's really the Tanahashi Evil story has all come down to this. And then the other one is the Philippes. We have the team from Australia, the Natural Classics, Tom and Stevie. I thought they've been fine. Mm-hmm. They haven't blown me out of the water, but they've been in with a lot of teams where you can't. That when you wrestle Tanahashi and Jado one day, and then you're wrestling Yano another one, and then you're wrestling, it's House of Torture, which their whole gimmick is that they don't have great matches. That's kind of their point. They're almost like it's a little bit meta, and that they kind of reject the idea of having good wrestling matches. It's all about just winning in any way possible, whether it's crowd pleasing or not. We care not. And the whole thing with them, it's that block has been a challenge for the two. I think they're talented, but I don't think they really got a chance to shine the way that they could if they were maybe in a block against just teams of better wrestlers.
Yeah, they were fine. This entire block was just kind of there for me. And when I said earlier, like everybody did their job. But whereas the A block, I felt like just had like fire matchups and like match of the tournament kind of candidates. There wasn't anything on between these 8 teams where I felt like magic was being made. You know what I mean? Like Tanahashi and Jado, like we talked about. Toriano and Bolton Oleg, you have a veteran who uses like, the Taguchi style, like cheap tricks that are entertaining to the crowd. Then you have like the Bolton Oleg, the heavy. And you're coming down to like, you don't have the killers. And the one that I thought really like stood out, we'll get to it later, was just one guy. But other than that, it was just kind of like the whole block was just kind of there.
Yeah, I agree. And was your guy either Taichi or Taka?
It was Taichi.
Yeah, Taichi really worked hard in this tournament.
Taichi worked his ass off.
He really did.
Like he had something to prove. Like if you're going to give me the spotlight, I'm going to show you that I deserve it kind of mentality. Yeah, and it's like, if a guy to make most of his minutes, he was like, I'm going to be the guy that you remember more than anybody else in these shows. And God damn it, he was.
For a guy that is in his mid-40s and probably not getting to the top of the mountain, again. If he was, like he's had some net runs, he's had the KOPW stuff, but I don't see him in the world title picture. Or
this is his career. This is what he is.
Yeah, but he seems to realize that I can make an impression from this role, and I can do good stuff. He and Taka were actually one of the better teams in this block. They were entertaining. Their matches were, for the most part, interesting. And the genius for Gedo, I thought this was really smart, giving them that upset win, because there's got to be an upset win. So they had Great-O-Khan and Henare come in as the tag team champions and lose on the opening night in the shock to Taichi and Taka Michinoku. What was smart about doing that on night one was then you can have your champs get it together, quote unquote, and roll through the rest of the tournament until the injury happened. So they still looked good. They tripped over the first hurdle, but then they got up and then they went on a winning streak. Then it planted the seed of doubt for the rest of the tournament. Anytime Taka got a hold of the Michinoku driver and he hit it on a few people, the rest of the tournament, you had to take it seriously that, maybe they're going to win another one. And they didn't, but you can't dismiss it. And I thought that was really smart. So it added a little bit of tension to a Taka Michinoku match, and Taka's usually there to lay down.
Taka was fun. Taka was a lot of fun, and you have given him the credit that he deserves with this performance. I'm going to compare Taichi to two people here, and this might make you laugh. Okay. I don't know how it can actually make you respond. I was thinking about this while you were talking. Taichi reminds me of Yoshihashi in a way, where there was a sentiment where you just kind of didn't take Taichi seriously. Like, he was good, but you just kind of felt like he didn't give it his all in the ring, or like the music gimmick was a little like lackluster, just something about it. But very quietly, he has built up a resume, and he is a hard-hitting veteran that when you get in the ring with Taichi, you're getting into the ring with a guy who's seen some shit. And he kind of reminds me of Sheamus like that, where it's like he's almost their version of Sheamus in a way, where he'll come in there and when he's motivated, he's going to have a good match and he'll get bruised up and he'll fight in the middle of the ring. But he's got to have a reason, and he's got to be motivated, and he's got to be like invested in what he's doing. Otherwise, you're just getting a Taichi match in which he's showing up, he's doing his thing, but when he's got an opportunity to be in the spotlight, he gives you a little bit extra sauce on that burger.
All right. So there we go. And let's see. Brad says, "I'd love to see Tito back and teaming with Oiwa." Yes. No, yeah. Well, we just want Tito back. We just want Tito back over teaming with anybody.
Big teeth.
And then USVA guy, very important. Watch Evil's post-match promo from that match. Can you clarify which match you're talking about, USVA guy? I'd imagine you're talking about some sort of Tanahashi storyline in there. Can you clarify which one, please?
Probably maybe the backstage comment from the last A block match.
Very possible. Very possible. And then Brad says, I wasn't impressed much by Natural Classics, just came off as typical Bullet Club heels. Yeah, I agree. The Rogue Army as a whole is kind of lost in the woods. We've talked about that a long time, that they don't have a spot in House of Torture. They don't have a spot really with the War Dogs, and they're just kind of floating along. And that was one where they were brought in as heels, but treated more like a Young Lion team, where they got one win, and Young Lion team doesn't even get that. But they weren't brought in as somebody they were looking to push, somebody that they could bring in and lose, and probably a cost-effective foreign tag team. It's just right now in a climate where there are two major companies in North America paying out a lot of money to wrestlers, going to Australia for hands is probably a much more cost-effective way. I said last time that it's a shorter flight. It's not particularly. Australia is still a hell of a long way away from Japan, but the time difference isn't so bad. You don't have to deal with as much jet lag anyway, but it's still a hell of a long way. And my guess is that you can probably get a team from Tamashi a lot cheaper than you can get a team from AEW. Mm-hmm. or CMLL, considering CMLL is still pretty warm and doing, big business on Friday nights and all that. So probably costs a lot of money to pull anybody good out from CMLL. So, yeah.
We shall see. There's plenty of things that you can do, but
we had one other angle today.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Video popped up.
Oh, yes.
And this is the answer to David Finlay's open challenge for Wrestle Dynasty, and it was answered by Brody King. another guy who has had a few matches in New Japan. Now, I have a theory about this, Jeremy. I always said that the real match for David Finlay, there are booking challenges because of how things happen, but it's Jay White, right? The match for Finlay, the AEW match, is Jay White, and that's the one that people really want to see. But they booked themselves into a corner with that by saying he's out of New Japan. Well, that's fine because you can have him come in as an AEW representative, but he's also banned from Japan, which gets a little stickier. You got to run angles to get out of that one. Because remember, two different things. He lost the Loser Leaves Japan match. He lost the Loser Leaves New Japan Pro Wrestling match. I thought this was going to be Juice Robinson until Juice got hurt.
It could have been.
You know, because they had Finn Juice, right? They were a team for a long time. So maybe that was going to be where they were going to go. And until they figure out Jay White, but then Juice got injured. And he's out of the Continental Classic, and they put Commander in his spot. Is that what they did?
Yes, they put fucking Commander in there. Well, Commander, who lost a match to Hechicero on Rampage the night before Juice broke his leg on a taped show. He lost a match and then was put into the Continental Classic.
Booker of the Year, Tony Khan, Jeremy. Booker of the Year.
It was. Steve Mortos also lost a match and then got put.
Booker of the Year, Young Bucks, 7 or 8 time tag team of the year. I mean, it's got to be true. It was in the yeah.
I'm very thankful for things like the G1 when I see things like the C2.
Yes. Anyway, but yeah, Juice unfortunately injured, isn't going to be anywhere for a while there, and so that's kind of where I was guessing. So again, we got to improvise, right? And Brody King has been in New Japan before and was apparently available. And I don't know any other real reason why Brody King would announce he's accepting the challenge other than he was available. And has been in New Japan before, and that list is.
Well, I mean, it's like all of the. Brody was not a person that I was expecting, right? And like you saw him talking, and I'm like, who could he be talking about in this thing? And he just said David Finlay. I'm like, of course, because David Finlay can beat Brody King and look like a monster by beating a monster. And it's like, okay, sure. Fine. And who knows who wins between David Finlay and Yota Tsuji, but if Yota Tsuji wins, and then David Finlay can go in the next day and get a dominant win against a big guy like that, either way, he's coming out looking like roses. David Finlay always should be winning in these matches at the Tokyo Dome right now. Like, he needs to be built up as this big monster. And one of those two matches, he's got to win. Like, you shouldn't have David Finlay losing both of these matches.
Oh, certainly not. No. Yeah. I know
so one or the other. And I kind of think he could lose to Yota and he could beat Brody King, or he could beat Yota and beat Brody King. Like, there are so many things that you could do. And they haven't even said if the Brody King match is for a title. Like, this one, they're deliberately not, like, putting a title on the line on this one, from what it sounds like so far. I don't know. I don't think Jay White
Zach and David are going to win their matches at Kingdom. I just don't think both Zach and Dave are going to win.
I think you're probably right on that. You know, there's so many things that have yet to be revealed. And there was a match that we were going to have next week at Strong Style Evolve that's clearly not happening, I don't think, with HENARE and Hiromu Takahashi. So
yeah, that was interesting.
That was literally announced like a couple of days ago. Here we go.
Yeah, Hiromu and Titan, so another LIJ member there against Jacob Austin Young and HENARE. Yeah, a little intriguing that they were leaning that direction for that one. But like you said, we'll have to hear what happens with HENARE and if he's okay. It's still no announcement that I've heard anyway on that. But again, it's also what? Well, it's getting on 7 o'clock in the morning over there. 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning in Japan.
We'll get this hour information going. We are members of the Fight Game Media Network. We do this show every Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. We'll do some special shows sometimes. We also have The Boom, which is a pay-per-view recap show that I'll do with Kevin Ely. We have The Wrap, which does WWE shows and WWE recaps. We have the Power Bombshells with Sam and Mel. They're on every Sunday. They'll be off one more Sunday while Sam recuperates from medical issues, and then they're going to come back with a vengeance after that and hit the ground running. We also have the Dynamite show with Paul Fontaine and Jeff Hawkins, who deconstruct like heroes every episode of Dynamite, which at one point in my life, I was very jealous about the opportunity that they had to do that. I am no longer jealous of their opportunity to deconstruct Dynamite. There are times where I will turn off Dynamite a half hour before the show's over, and I will catch up the next day to talk about it immediately every Wednesday. These are the true heroes of fight game media. And I don't know if Paul's ever going to hear this or not, but I'm going to let him know you are doing God's work, my friend. You are doing God's work. So please like and subscribe wherever you see. If you hear this on an audio feed from the Speaking of Strong Style podcast, we do have a Speaking of Strong Style podcast that Steven Conway lovingly and generously puts out every week. We have this video feed that we do through Fight Game Media. You can follow me at Jeremy Finestone on Blue Sky, Jer Finestone at Twitter, DeFlash00 on Reddit. That's an old email address, and I'm a dork. But yeah, we're everywhere. We're going to be doing a lot of coverage for the Tokyo Dome, for WrestleKingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. Steven is going to Tokyo. He's literally flying over there to talk about it. So we are going to have the market cornered on some of the WrestleKingdom talk. We're really excited about that. And we're going to bring you live content every Thursday through the rest of the month heading towards WrestleKingdom. And we are really, really, really excited to do so. So, yeah, I was just trying to do the plug. Thank you for everybody for checking in today. And Steven, what else you got?
We got some questions to answer and some comments. So first of all, the USVA guy, thank you very much for clarifying. He said the last match, he was very emotional on Hiromu screwing him over. So you can go back on NJPW World and hear Evil's comments on that. He said they could be significant. And, of course, those are subtitled now, so you can catch them in English. And Colin mentioned, yeah, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning, which is good news, which means I might be able to do this show from Japan, and it'll only be 7:30 in the morning in Tokyo when we start. So I'm going to be in a hotel room that I could probably reach out and touch with each hand. It's a nice place. It's a nice hotel.
How many times are you going to be recording in the morning over the next month with you never recording in the morning ever?
Goodness, I don't know. I'm going to need a lot of that canned coffee, which thankfully they sell in the vending machines and it's delicious in Japan. I'm going to need a lot of it. Some questions, though. Some of Dunstan's questions from earlier. He said, do you think Yota Tsuji versus Ryohei Oiwa is the closest WrestleKingdom main event among the young guys? Like, of the young guys, which combination of them will be the first WrestleKingdom, the soonest WrestleKingdom main event? Tsuji versus Oiwa. I think it's probably, well, it could be Tsuji and Uemura. It could also be Shota Umino and somebody. I really think that their plans for Shota Umino is still to put him right on top. So I would guess that some combination of Shota in there would be it, because you have perhaps the new Shinsuke Nakamura and Tsuji with that strange kind of charisma. You have the new Tanahashi and Shota clearly trying to do that. And then, the question is, who's the next Shibata of the other guys in there? So I think you would probably Umino and Tsuji, maybe. Would be of the young guys, like what would be the combination that would be the first to headline a Kingdom? That's kind of where I'm going. Tsuji and Yota. Just a guess right now. Could change in a year.
I already forgot the question. Can you repeat the question for me?
Of the young guys,
yes.
What is the closest, meaning the soonest, WrestleKingdom main event among this new generation of guys? He thinks it's Tsuji versus Oiwa is the next, is the combination of those guys that will headline the Tokyo Dome.
Oh, yeah, of those two, which one are going to be the ones that are going to be?
I take this generation, like Shooter.
Oh, Oiwa, I think it's Shota and Finley next year.
And you're going to put Finley in there with
Shota and Finley is the big IWGP heavyweight title match that crowns.
But up recently back from excursion young lions, which combination of the two of them will headline the Tokyo Dome sooner than any other combination of the two of them?
Tsuji and Shota.
That's what I think too. But Oiwa could get in there. Oiwa could definitely.
Injuries, anything, the X factors, but you think about how they have developed and who has who have gotten farther up the mountain and to those two, and the confidence with the company to go around those two.
He also mentioned, he said, do you think that this year's World Tag League was better than last year's or lower than last year's? I think it was lower. I just went back and looked at World Tag League 2023. There were some better teams in there. We got Kiyomiya and Oiwa, for instance. They had some good matches. Gates of Agony were in there. They did a little bit better, I would say, than the Philippes did. Umino and Narita had the story. So, you know, you had Tsuji and Zendakan were pretty good.
I liked last year's better, but I can't say that it was better. Monster
Sauce and all that. So I think that the last year's World Tag League was a little bit better than this year's.
Yeah. I'm at a point where I just need to lower my expectation for World Tag League at the end of the year. It's a popcorn program.
Yeah, and this year especially, they treated it like a series of house shows, and you can just see it from the towns they booked in the compressed schedule, which is okay. They had, you know, but that is how it was treated, and that was how it was wrestled as well. So, all right. So next week, 1 week from today, we will be back to talk about how World Tag League turned out, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of news about what happens with Kingdom and Dynasty. There'll be more announcements, I'm confident, and we will be previewing the next Long Beach show, the NJPW Strong show from Long Beach. We expect that one to have consequences as well. Remember, so far, no IWGP, so NJPW Strong women's match. Mercedes has a match against Hazuki. We expect something to come out of that for the Dome. I don't expect them to have 2 nights in the Dome without Mercedes. So I really think we're going to get some things other than that as well. But I expect that show to be consequential too. So when we come back, we will be previewing that one, looking back at World Tag League, looking forward to any news about Dynasty and Kingdom, and we'll be right here to talk about it with all of you guys. So thanks to everyone who joined us today. We had some terrific interaction on the chat. Really appreciate all of you guys being here. To anyone who watches, we are grateful for your time and listens later on a podcast. We're so happy that we get to do this for you each and every week, and we'll be back a week from now. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Strong Style, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Bye.